All right, greetings. Welcome back to Blackbird News, where everything is connected. How y'all doing? Good to see y'all. Thanks for hanging out. Thanks for stopping by. Y'all are super cool. Hope you enjoyed your day yesterday, whatever it is you're doing. If you're doing something or nothing, sometimes like a whole lot of nothing is my favorite thing to do because I rarely do a whole lot of nothing. Rare is the day when the whole lot of nothing is happening. But anyways, what's up? It's Friday, and what we're doing today is a regular Friday thing, which is where we kind of. It's weird though. Friday seems to be low on traffic, but these are the days when I want to have. These are the days when I want to have more of a just a general conversation and interact with the chat a little more and take calls. You know, I'm open to take calls. The whole show on call in. So if anybody wants to call in today is a good day to do it. Just whenever, just hop in. Kind of trying to not stress and get through too many things today, but just have a more of a general conversation about this and that. But I don't know. I feel like maybe I should do these days on another day because there's more. Let's say a Saturday or a Sunday sometimes has more traffic for whatever reason. Maybe Fridays are days that people are just kind of taking a walk in the park or something like that. I don't know. But anyways, we're here. And Andre said, eating petro turkey and fixings. Petro turkey is good. Petro turkey. That's good. Does it look like it's an El Nino next year? I mean, we've had like 3 straight La Nina years or more, I think. When was the last El Nino? 2016? 17? 16, 17? So that's kind of a while we've been in La Nina. Well, what if I read this? We'll read the story and we'll let people kind of wander in here. No shopping Fridays today. Yeah, I've kind of avoided the Black Friday thing. I do think that we're going to go to a museum, though, later and just look at some art. I'm going to just check out some art. 3 years La Nina. Yeah, that's what I heard. But it seems like the last El Nino we had was 2016. So I was trying to do the math. But maybe the El Nino lasted for a little while. Well, let's look at this thing that I feel like we talked about this already. Didn't we talk about this? A study exploring catastrophic climate change scenarios, climate endgame. Or maybe this is a different one. I'll read the abstract. Prudent risk management requires consideration of bad to worst case. I feel like we read this. Yet for climate change, such potential futures are poorly understood. Bad to worst case scenarios. Could anthropogenic climate change result in worldwide societal collapse or even eventual human extinction? Oh my God. How dare we even utter such things? No, I'm not bringing soup. Osama, no. Just looking, just appreciating. I like history, and I like artifacts, historical, and I like paintings, and I like things like that. I have no inclination to destroy them. But, there are other things I would be happy to do to raise awareness, but I don't know if I want to jack some paintings. Is there an Amazon strike going on? I don't know. Maybe we'll switch over and talk about that. But maybe we'll talk about that a little bit. That's kind of great if there is an Amazon strike. We were just talking about, did we talk about Starbucks closing down? Did we miss that story? Starbucks closed down at the first store, the Starbucks store, to unionize. And I know, vicariously, someone who's involved in the unionizing of Starbucks or in that fight. So I guess I was talking to somebody about that. And anyways, they're doing all kinds of, Starbucks is doing hinky things around unionizing. They're closing down stores that are unionized or closing them down for remodeling. And these tactics are illegal, but they can do them. They can get away with them for the time being. Unions not in a good place for most of the U.S. I mean, in some industries, they're very powerful, right? Sports and entertainment. Unions seem to still wield a lot of power. And, there are some functioning unions out there, but the general trend in the last 50 years has been away from unions. Awesome. A Black Friday strike. Well, hold on. Maybe we'll just switch it up since we're kind of doing whatever today. Let's jump over to that. I feel like we already covered this article anyways, but that's from a month ago. This is from Amazon faces Black Friday protests, strikes in 40 countries. They're not going to let me read this. The Guardian will let me read it. Amazon warehouse workers stage Black Friday strikes and protests around the world. You guys want to see what I'm reading? A strike in Europe, not America. All right. It's not too late to jump in the conversation. We're just having a conversation today. We're just talking about this and that and kind of, letting things fry. Letting things fry. It's a good day to call in and call in. If you want to call in and talk about whatever, hit me up on the call-in app. The show is live on call-in. Amazon warehouse workers stage Black Friday strikes and protests around the world. On one of the firm's biggest shopping days of the year, employees demand better wages and conditions. Well, go Amazon workers. Workers in the UK and 40 other countries are to strike and stage protests. Time to coincidence with Black Friday sales? Well, great. Employees in dozens of countries, from Japan, Australia, and India, the U.S., and across Europe are demanding better wages and conditions in a campaign called Make Amazon Pay. In the UK, hundreds of members of the GMB union are staging strikes or protests at a number of Amazon warehouses, including a protest outside of the fulfillment center in Coventry. Will go. Great. This is great. This is good energy. This is the energy we need. I'd rather see a general boycott to basically destroy Amazon. Like, I'd rather see people unite and not shopping at Amazon to the extent that they have to close their doors. I'd rather see that, but one thing at a time, I guess. Amazon shouldn't even exist, and many companies shouldn't even exist. So Amazon shouldn't even be allowed to exist. If we're really If we're really talking about reality, but exist they do. Amazon workers are overworked, underpaid, and they've had enough. Profits at Amazon Services UK, the group's warehouse and logistics operation, which is thought to employ more than half of the company's UK workforce of close to 75,000 people, have soared by 60% to £204 million, with revenues growing by just over a quarter to more than $6 billion last year. Well, yeah, you guys got so much money. You guys got all the money. Workers are demanding a wage rise from £10.50 to £15 an hour as the cost of living crisis hits household budgets. However, participating in the action in the UK could mean that protesters miss out on the second part of a £500 bonus Amazon agreed for tens of thousands of frontline workers. Last month, Amazon UK said the award of the second part of the payment was dependent on staff taking no unauthorized absence between November 22nd and Christmas Eve. Oh. A bit of the old carrot and stick game. The GMB argues that linking the payment to I was just about to say, I think that's illegal too. Linking the payment to staff attendance could be viewed as an illegal strike-busting move, right? Of course. All right, well. Let's hope they are successful, or they make some headway, or let's, this is great. Poppy Davis says Chicago is on strike. Great. Great. All right. Well, let's get back to this article I was reading. I feel like we talked about this, but it is something quickly I wanted to just throw out there. What they're basically saying in this study is that there's a lot of talk about 1.5C or 2C, mitigation and what, there's only this nebulous kind of like, well, things could get really bad, but nobody ever really talks about what those bad things might be. And because we can't talk about those things as a society or as a civilization, we can't talk about those things. And a lot of times we're not even allowed to talk about those things, or those things are ridiculed as being crazy talk. But there is quite a bit of evidence to support that the reality that we're actually on a track that's way worse than anybody really wants to acknowledge. That's the reality. And as I've said, Poppy Davis says, kind of weird that U.S. strikes are not covered on U.S. media. Of course not. What I was going to say is, and I'll say it again, the conspiracy is not that climate change is a hoax. The conspiracy is that it is much worse than they are letting you know. We know this. People that understand climate science know this. Michael Moore knows this. So many people out there understand absolutely what's going on. And the U.S. military knows this. Everybody in the government knows this. All people understand this. Several people have done good work on this, and one of those people, Guy McPherson, has to be mentioned in the conversation. Must be mentioned. Plenty of other people have come to the same conclusions. Jim Bendell, Roger Hallam, um, so many climate scientists out there. Peter Wadhams. Does Paul really think that we're going to catastrophe? He's an interesting cat because he's like, things could look bad, but then he kind of pulls away from the whole we're going over the falls kind of talk. Anyways, people fully understand, and everybody understands, everybody in power anywhere understands what's happening. They don't understand that it's a joke. They don't understand that it's a ruse. They understand, where we're at. They understand that it's more real than they are willing to admit, more real, more catastrophic than they are allowing people to understand. That's why there's no coverage on the media. That's not why there's no in-depth coverage. That's why there's no, I wouldn't say that it's not allowed. It's just not, it's not spoken of in the correct manner. So Gene says, I noticed the shift has gone from climate denial to it really isn't so bad. Right. There's so many different things going on. And I have a problem. I do, I've said this many times. Here's a random thought. Follow me on Twitter, Black Bear News 1. I am, and I say this very often. I say, that I'm upset at the way alternative journalists are not covering this, or the way that they're covering this. And there's even, people that are going so far as to say, like, well, yes, the green energy movement is bad, and what they're, the WF is bad, and what they're doing around climate change is not good. But they don't actually really talk about climate change and what's going on with climate change. So what it does is it allows people to walk away from that conversation thinking that climate change isn't so bad, or it's not really what they're telling us, But they have no understanding. They have no in-depth understanding. And I guess that's the other problem I have with alternative journalists in general, is that even though, if the ones that are denying or downgrading the problem are fully capable of doing deep investigations into all sorts of things, right? They're, fully, they're capable, intelligent people who can use their brains in a common sense way and can do very deep investigative dives in all kinds of issues. But when it comes to climate change, they're like, nah, it's like they're very cherry picky, right? They only want to cover things. Oh, I didn't actually. Do we even talk about this? Dane Wigington being on Ryan Krishan's channel. It was interesting because Dane Wigington actually acknowledges climate change and acknowledged climate change. I don't necessarily like his take on it. I don't, I appreciate his work and all that. I've gone into it before, but I don't fully agree with Dane Wigington's take. And part of why I don't agree with it is that he leaves people walking away with the idea that it's just geoengineering. That's just what's causing it, man. It's, if only they would stop, if only they would quit doing the things, everything would be great. And he kind of said that in his messaging in that video. He kind of said, well, if they only stop the geoengineering, then the earth could recover adequately. And I was like, I don't know about that one. Sure, if they're doing it geoengineering, you're right. That's probably not helping. But he's just leaving it. It's so surface level. His messaging around climate change and I feel like his understanding is better, but it's still not very good. It's very surface. It's very minimal. He's not really going in depth into what's going on with climate change, and it all gets transferred over to geoengineering. And I feel, and again, it was nice to hear him, actually acknowledge somebody acknowledge climate change on TLAV. Ron Christian couldn't really actually agree or jump in there anywhere, but his work leaves people walking away with like, well, if only they would quit doing the things, then everything would be fine. And it's just like, that's just the wrong information. It's just false. That's just a misinformation. And I don't know if that's, I don't want to go so far as to say that's intentional or it's a limited hangout or I don't know. But it's just people that call themselves environmentalists and then give people, the wrong information about what's going on, or try to divert the conversation away from actual climate change, right, to something else. What are they doing with this green technology? What are they doing with this geoengineering? What are they doing with this, track trace database? All the whatever. What things they're going to impose on people? Carbon credits and carbon tracking and all that stuff. Right. All of those things are concerns, but you're leaving out the whole conversation about climate change, and it's very frustrating to me because climate change is a bigger, badder bully than all of those things combined, and is going to start kicking some butt, in the not too distant future. And nobody's talking about that. And, you're just setting up people for a bad outcome. And I don't appreciate that. I don't appreciate that from people that are supposed to be investigative journalists. I don't appreciate it. People not doing their work. Not doing the work that they should be doing. But it's all good. It's fine. It's fine. Obsolete Optics says, Kevin, I don't see it that way. The way I understand Dane is he doesn't say to only stop geoengineering. He just says that it's the worst thing we're doing and should stop that first, basically. Yeah, I mean, that's the way I see it. I mean, that's what I see him saying. But I think that's misinformation. I don't think that's true. If we're doing, I agree with him. I think something is going on. I think they're doing something. I absolutely agree with him on that. And he's saying it's in response to warming. Okay. Now we have something, some basic reality to work on. But if you understand that there's warming going on and there's a cause for the warming, the cause is not geoengineering. The cause is something else, right? So he's not talking about anything, and that's not true. If you just stop the geoengineering, everything's going to be fine. No, because there's a cause for the warming. There's a cause for the climate change. There's a cause for the reason why they had to do the geoengineering in the first place. And we're not talking about that.
FaceTime video.
Sorry. We're not talking about that. So if you're not talking about the cause for why there's warming or the cause for why there's, we're destroying the planet, right? The cause for the need for the geoengineering in the first place, well, you kind of miss the entire like crux of the matter, right? Yeah, I think something's going on with the geoengineering, and I think it should probably be stopped. I don't know. Exactly. Andre, his source of income is based on geoengineering. And there you go. So it's the conspiratorial aspect of it that actually drives his viewership. And again, in the conspiracy world, they've got it completely, they're completely wrong, on this subject. They're absolutely out to lunch. And again, I don't know whether that's intentional or not. I don't know. I won't speculate, but it just seems a little weird. But again, we're not allowed to have a conversation about how bad things can get, and across the board, nobody wants to acknowledge, admit. It's a very catastrophic thing, right? It's hard to talk to people about it. I don't know. Uh, I mean, I just don't hear him. Maybe I'm missing it. Maybe I'm missing his message. I don't hear him acknowledge the climate crisis for what it's supposed to be. And I actually don't agree. Like, well, we just need to stop the geoengineering. And then, I mean, sure. Yeah. But it's like you're missing out on the whole like industrial civilization is a big problem thing, right? Too many humans doing too many things. What about that conversation? Missing out on that completely. Um, yeah, I don't know. I don't know. It's, I don't. It's the more conspiratorial message is more popular than the real message, the reality, right? Because look at Dane Wigington's viewership and look at Guy McPherson's viewership. Look at how many people are willing to go along with the ride on Dane Wigington. Yeah, right. It's super popular, right? But Guy McPherson giving you the very uncomfortable truth, right? That is not popular at all. That's and that's why it's hard doing a climate change channel that actually discusses the reality of climate change because nobody wants to hear it. Nobody wants to discuss it. Nobody wants to accept it. Nobody wants to take it. It's easier to go like, well, yeah, if only those guys would stop spraying the skies full of things, then everything would be fine. But F those guys, right? That's just it's kind of like a lizard brain message. Sorry, I don't mean to be that critical, but it appeals to a part of people's brains that's more like reactionary and like, oh yeah, of course, the bad people are doing the bad things, and if they'd only stop doing the bad things, then everything would be fine. Okay. Right. Nobody wants to feel like they're the bad people doing the bad things. That's what I'm trying to say. That's what I'm trying to say. Dan Wigington once again is like taking it out of human beings' hands and putting it in the hands of somebody else, right? The bad people at the top. I don't know. I think people need to be. I think people need a big dose of humility, and that's why people don't want to talk about this. That's why people don't want to accept it. They don't want to realize that this is reality because it would actually cause a big old gulp. Oh, we done messed up, right? Drilling under Lake Mead to drain the last drop. That's interesting too. Yeah, what is that? What is that about? Yes, exactly, Andre. It gives folks a way out. It gives it absolves people of responsibility or culpability, and that's the thing. No, that's why nobody wants to understand that climate change is a serious human beings launching themselves into end times. Nobody wants to deal with that because it actually involves culpability or actually some serious like, oh my God. If you could only shift the blame to the WEF or the geoengineering guys or the HARP people or those people over there, if you could only shift to the aliens or somebody's doing something, if you can only shift the blame away from you and point the finger at somebody, it's way easier. Yeah. Anyways. Yeah. But it's, unfortunately it's real. Unfortunately, people don't want to talk about it. Unfortunately, the reality is much worse than people want to acknowledge or face. And that's why also the messaging, the popular messaging is we still have some time. If we only do, a couple of the very minimal things that we possibly could do, if we just keep on saying the words, we need a transformational shift in how we, conduct our business on the planet. If only we, could do these things, right? If only we could stay under 2C or 1.5C, right? And they just keep on saying these things, and it's a panacea. It makes people go like, yeah, Yeah, we got to do that. Anyways, right? How different would it be if, people on CNN or whatever, any news story were saying, well, guys, we're most likely going to hit like 3C by 2050, and that's pretty much an extinction level event. So what do you say we do about this? Everything you know or think you know about climate change is pretty much wrong. The reality is ... Obsolete Optics says, in response to the draining Lake Mead, it's about putting a third straw at the very bottom of Lake Mead, because the first straw is now above the water line and the second straw is getting close. Yeah, they're almost down to hitting the lower drain, I guess, for Lake Mead. And which they will do. Right? They will get the very last of the water, and I mean, look at the way it's going. That's another phenomena, that's very concerning, is that look at the way it's going. We have, major rivers of the world, Yangtze, Rhine, Mississippi, et cetera, all reaching catastrophically low levels, where the actual operation of civilization starts to be in question. That's this year. That happened this year. So, we're already there. We're already on the edge. We're like right up on the edge. And so, what does that look in the next 2 or 3 years? What does it look like? 5 years? And people are just like, la, 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 la. La, 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 until it's scream your bloody head off. Peter Zabinden says, what a sissy guy was when COVID-19 was in the news and how wrong he was. That's interesting. I didn't really follow, to be honest, I got Guy's message a long time ago. So I don't need to, I don't tune into Guy McPherson much anymore. He's stopped writing. He stopped adding to his essay a long time ago. He stopped updating it because he was like, there's nothing else I can say. There's no more information I can add to this that will, make the message much clearer. And that's kind of how I feel about, there's a lot of climate change channels I don't really tune into anymore because I got it. I got the message. I don't, I do this channel to just talk about and be in touch with on a daily basis, the climate thing that's going on. There, once in a while, an interesting article comes out, an interesting, but there's news stories abound that are telling us what's going on in real time. Yeah. So, I don't tune into Guy much anymore. So I didn't really know what his COVID-19 thing was about. I didn't know what his stance was. Whether he was gung ho. But that's expectable, right? Because so many, it's expectable, and it is also very, it's a little disheartening, from people that understand how big oil and big media and how wrong the whole corporate state, monopoly is on information and science, right? The people that want to give you the wrong science around climate change and oil companies and how everything works. The fact that they actually believe when somebody tells them there's a pandemic and right, I can't go too far into it, but the fact that they actually believe the message is a little disheartening, right? Because you're like, well, you're skeptical. You're pretty skeptical of how everything is going, but suddenly you totally believe the story. But there was a lot of people like that. A lot of people like that. A lot of people who were climate change believers and understanders and, maybe good lefty liberal types who just totally drank the Kool-Aid. I'm not mad at any, it's mind-boggling to me because, but that's how it goes. That's how it went. And so it's like, well, some people drank the Kool-Aid, some people didn't. And listen, the same people that don't drink the Kool-Aid on the other side, right? The skeptics totally drink the climate change is a hoax Kool-Aid. So, right, they think, they're totally skeptical of big business and the oligarchy and people that are, controlling everything and government and all that stuff. But big oil, was part of the crafting this message that climate change wasn't that bad, or it was a hoax, or it was a thing that was just made up, blah, blah, blah. I don't know. They're drinking the Kool-Aid on climate change. So it's like people are just bound to drink the Kool-Aid on something. So it's disheartening, but I'm not mad at it, and I'm not upset, and I'm not, I'm trying not to think any less of people for that, because people have holes in their thinking, and I probably have holes in my thinking. So we all do. And you can't be 100% perfect and perfectly right. I'm not here to give purity tests to people, because there's no way to pass the purity test. You always fail. if you're like, oh, I don't F those people because they thought this thing or that thing. Like, come on. Everybody is fallible. Everybody has some holes in their thinking. Everybody, it's just like, I just try to hang out with the people that are mostly right, and they could be wrong on some things, and whatever. Andre says 70% drank the Kool-Aid. Yes. Obsolete Optics says, I listen to Dane's broadcast every Saturday. I've also been following Guy McPherson since circa 2007-8 when he first appeared on the scene. Yeah, it sounds like you have a rounded view of things, how things are working. I used to listen to Dane's broadcast every Saturday. Again, I maybe that's my personality, is I get bored of things really fast. So like, I listened to Dane's broadcast every Saturday for a long time, and after a while I was like, all right, I got it. Ken Lundgren says a total rebellion against zero COVID in China. Yep. As there should be, right? Why wouldn't humans rebel against that? Why wouldn't humans go, you know what? I really am not enjoying this. Yes, cancel culture is cancerous. Obsolete Optics, yes. Yeah, and I am fallible. I'm a human being who's actually, can have moments of wanting to cancel other people. I get really upset when people are, really going hard on some misinformation. I can be very upset by that, and I can be very angry at that, and I can, lash out, or like, oh, F that person. Oh, I hate him. I hate this person. Right? Like, I have those moments, trying to just be open. China is collapsing in real time. Well, we can only hope. We can only hope. All right, last thing I wanted to talk about today a little bit. There was a really interesting article in The Intercept about Nancy Pelosi. And I mean, she's supposed to be stepping down as leader in a leadership role in the party, but she's going to keep on. How long has she been in the House? A long time. And she's not, this I can't even read. This is a very long article. But it's kind of about how she got into power. And how, what she is all about, what she's kind of, she kind of represents the new Democrat, which is basically right wing Democrats, right? It's funny when they, I was just seeing on the sidebar of the Guardian article something about Kanye West announces presidential race amid ties to the far right. I was like, it's silly that they call people the far right. Like it's just a, it's a epithet. It's a, pejorative. But they, on some levels they're right, because the Democratic Party, liberals are actually very right wing these days. They're very pro war. They're very pro censorship. They're very pro mandate and lockdowns and policies and controlling your life. They're also they're pro war, pro military industrial complex, pro big business, right? Many Democrats are pro fossil fuels and not into the Green New Deal and anti domestic programs that can help people, right? They're just the the Republican Party of old, right? If you go back, yes, Gene, far right means you are a racist Nazi. Basically, that's what they're trying to say with that. But on some levels, they're right, because the Democratic Party is a right-wing party. They're extremely right-wing. So anything to the right of them is probably far right. But I disagree with the far right labeling, because generally what they mean by far right these days is that somebody on the right is actually to the left of the Democratic Party now, and that's what they call far right, like Jimmy Dore or any lefty that's like actually progressive and actually not into the whole right-wing Democrat thing. Actually anybody who is a lefty who is not into being a fake leftist, right, who actually stands for more progressive left-leaning policies, like being anti-war or anti-fossil fuels or anti some restrictions on capitalism and right, public welfare programs, and the whole lefty thing, the thing that used to be lefty, that's not lefty anymore, right? So now the left has moved to the right. So anybody who holds like a differing opinion, and usually those opinions are kind of on the left or swing more towards traditional left, they'll call them far right. So isn't that ironic? If you're to the left of the Democratic Party, you will get labeled far right for being left of the Democratic Party. That's what that means. So that's what far right to me means, code for actual progressive or actual lefty, which, I don't know. I don't know if Kanye West stands for actual lefty things, but I think in general, he's probably to the left of the Democratic Party. So that's funny. But this is a very interesting article. It's long, but I kind of read most of it. Just kind of about how the Democratic Party has shifted to the right. And I think everybody, is everybody clear on how that happened? Is everybody knowledgeable about after the 70s, when Reagan took office and the Democrats got just slaughtered, lost the Senate and the House and everything, or the Senate, and then they lost the House later on. But they got slaughtered, and the Democratic Party's reaction was to instead of you know entrenching lefty values, instead of fighting against the this right wing caucus, or the the right wing has always been a force in American politics, especially recently. But instead of fighting the right, they just said, well, we'll just play the game like they do. And then Clinton was elected, and the rest is history, right? They started gutting things that were longstanding, regulations, and started introducing things that right wingers were pushing but couldn't get past. And then Clinton was elected, and then Obama was elected, and then Biden was elected, and they're like, how about we do these right wing things under the cover of being a Democrat. They completely just pretty much capitulated and rolled into the Republican Party, and that's when the true uniparty came through. Anyways, I just want to read the last part of this article, which is kind of cool. In the 1980s, the phrase "greed is good" began making the rounds, but that's not because greed was a new phenomenon. For the first time since the Gilded Age, greed was rewarded. Right? They rolled back all the tax, Reagan and folks rolled back the tax rates on business and on, wealth that were, stood for 50 years or 60 years. Was it that long? Something like that. 40 years. Greed with a 90% marginal tax rate is pointless. Central to the policy goal of discouraging extreme incomes is the belief that making that much money that fast is almost always antisocial and destructive behavior. In other words, there's no genuine value a person can add to the world that is worth $1 million a week every week. The only way to make that kind of income is to take it from other people. This is why people, people acknowledge, that billionaires shouldn't exist these days, but and probably not. They probably shouldn't exist. So they are far more powerful. They have more power over public policy than people do, and that's just the bottom line of that, right? Because they influence the government, because they buy the politicians, because they buy the ad time, and they buy the TV stations, and they buy everything up, and they influence what happens on the planet. And they have more influence than we do. That's bad. That's a problem. The only way to make that kind of income is to take it from other people, leaving wreckage behind. Wreckage. That's why the 1980s saw the birth of corporate raiders, now renamed private equity investors, who used leveraged debt to take a controlling stake in a company, liquidate its assets and pension fund, then file for bankruptcy protection and lay off the workers. The real purpose of a high marginal tax rate is not to seize money from the rich. It's to discourage the rapid accumulation of wealth, to set up disincentives that stop private equity investors from even thinking about, say, taking over Sears and siphoning the value from it before killing it. Sure, they could do it, but with a 90% marginal rate on extreme incomes, what's the point? The new policy of the 1980s was to encourage extreme incomes and rapid wealth accumulation. Top rates were cut by Reagan and the Democrats from 70 down to 50, and then down under 30% by the end of the decade. And then, on since then. That's been going on ever since. And to Trump, it's the ratchet effect now, where the Democrats, just stall. They don't do anything about the tax rates, and every time a Republican gets in, they cut those tax rates even more, and everybody screams and cries about it. And then the Democrat gets in office, and they're not going to ratchet those things back up. They're not going to add to it. No way. You saw when Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren were talking about a 1 or 2% tax rate, people were like, "Oh my God, it's Hitler," right? Literally referring to Bernie Sanders as like a Hitler type because he wanted to tax the wealthy 1% more. I mean, it's so ridiculous. I mean, that shouldn't even be a conversation. That was just the most weak sauce proposal ever, right? You should have been like, "How about 30% more?" Right? Yay, from the crowd. The crowd cheers. Yay, right? No problem. People would have been like, "Go for it." But they were like, "Oh, how about 1%? 1%? No. Oh my God, no. We're going to have to, we're going to have to send some people to talk to you about this. We can't have that." Just as campaigns were becoming exponentially more expensive thanks to the dominance of television, a new class of super rich were able to they're available to tap for the needed funds. Those super rich were simultaneously using their new power to demolish organized labor. Woohoo! Looting their pensions in the process, which exacerbated the Democratic funding gap. Right, the Democrats were like, "Well, we can't get money from these wealthy donors unless we do the things that the donors want." And we just became, and now 2022, the Democrats are literally the GOP. They're more popular with donors. They're just a more popular target for the wealthy, to do whatever they want to do, right? And the right are just there to kind of, again, ratchet everything back towards the corporations, but they're playing a role as like the evil, the far right, the fascists and the populists and the really bad people. Sama says here in New York, ex-Governor Cuomo gutted hospitals of beds before the bioweapon. Yep, I do remember that. That is true. Democrat, right? As in demolish, Democrat. Anyways, political scientist Daniel Schlossman of Johns Hopkins has done some of the best research on precisely how the Democrats went from being the party of workers and people to one dominated by Wall Street. His conclusion is at once surprising and intuitive. As Democrats went hunting for corporate cash, most of the industries they flirted with created backlash elsewhere in the coalition, often from labor or environmentalists. But Wall Street in the early 1980s wasn't the beast it is today, and so the finance industry was a relatively inoffensive source of party cash. Like any addiction, it seemed harmless at first. Low tax rates today don't just lead to yawning inequality, but they also produce the supply of cash that is destroying our politics. The Supreme Court for now is ruling out what you could call demand-side policing of corruption. But we shouldn't ignore the supply side. Okay, those are a couple of good paragraphs that just encapsulated what has been going on, which, we all should know, right? Yeah, also Cuomo not only did that, but so did what's her name? Gretchen Whitmer in Michigan. She also sent the elderly to COVID homes, or basically consigned them to their fate by COVID. Yeah, yeah. Is that her name, Gretchen Whitmer? Megan Whitmer or Gretchen Whitmer? I think it's Gretchen Whitmer. Anyways, yeah, I didn't know that she did that too, but she did. She did. Choir Boy says Liz Cheney got ran off from the Republicans by being too radical right, so the Dems welcome her with open arms. Is she radical right, Liz Cheney? I think she's pretty solidly neocon. Choirboy says, I was Dem under the 70s when we had strong unions. Liz Cheney would never ally with that party. No. I thought she got run off because she wasn't a Trump supporter. I thought Liz Cheney got run off because she was a Trump. She wasn't down with like the Trump faction of the Republican Party. Like she was solidly like in the traditional Republican mold. Anyways, well, guys, I got to wrap it up. I'm going to check out my coffees real quick. I have not received any coffees yet today, but that is a good way to support the channel. buymeacoffee.com/blackbearnews. Also, Rockfin tips are also greatly appreciated. Greatly appreciated. Greatly appreciated. Okay, I'll stop saying it. It's a good way to support the channel, or Patreon/blackbearnews. Is a good way to support the channel. I appreciate you guys hanging out. And I will see you all tomorrow at the regular time of 12 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Don't forget to follow me here at Twitter, Black Bear News 1. All right. Till next time, peace.